What's up, my peoples? I am Gandhi, and today this is episode 19 of Gandhi's Thoughts. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and apologize in advance because my allergies are destroying me. I've had allergies for the past like 2 weeks. I've never had them in my entire life. You know, like the occasional bronchitis is one thing, but this is like every day, itchy eyes, runny nose, sneezing. I wake up from sneezing. It's the worst thing ever. I don't know how people live this way. I really don't. It's awful. But so today, for today's episode, I'm going to be talking about two teams who have made some team changes that a lot of people are familiar with, but you know they may not necessarily know what the roster is. So we're going to cover them. I'm going to give a little bit of background story. It's going to be kind of like a little story time here. Little story time here. So the first team I want to talk about is Status Quo. Status Quo no longer has Royal 2, and instead of Royal 2, they have APG. Before I get into talking about their Halo 4 and how they're attending Nashville, I want to talk a little bit about what they've been up to. Now, Status Quo at the beginning, kind of in the middle here, they went from Halo 4 over to Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty, they do run, at the Dallas event, they did have Flame Sword, Enable, and Snakebite, and I'm not sure who their fourth is because, like I said, I'm not a Call of Duty guy, so I don't really pay attention to that. But they didn't see the same results as they did in Halo 4. Granted, you know, they are new to it, and these other guys have 3 years of competition up on them, but they got to losers bracket round 7, so they're still, you know, for the little bit of time they put in, they definitely showed up and competed. They placed the exact same as Rage, which was Ogre's 2 team, who's in the exact same boat. So, you know, they're traditional gamers, but let's give a little bit of a backstory here of Status Quo. Status Quo is kind of that, not Cinderella story, because by all means they aren't a Cinderella story. They are a grinding team. Status Quo, the team itself, emerged out in 2008. Somewhere along those lines. I know some of them may have attended different events, but Status Quo originally emerged in 2008. During that time, yes, they saw immediate success, and by that I mean they were, you know, top 32, top 16, etc., but they weren't. It's not like they formed together and then all of a sudden they started getting top 4s and top 3s. That wasn't the case. It took a lot of time for that to end up happening there. Tots was on the original lineup as well. Tots, as we all know, went from like team to team to team, and Status Quo kind of stayed the same with Flame Sword in there and Enable. But so Status Quo's first big tournament was the 2010 National Championship. And the reason it was such a humongous tournament for them was, you know, they were in this rut, right? They had this rut where they were just stuck at getting 4th place. It was like 4th place. Like Status Quo, you knew was going to show up to the event, but they weren't going to get anything crazy. They weren't going to, like, all of a sudden win the event. No, that wasn't the case. They were going to come in, they were going to get 4th every single time. And every time before the event, I was like, you know, they're going to get 4th. There's nothing they can do about it. They're just stuck in this rut of 4th place. They haven't made that switch. They haven't made that switch in their head where they can get past it. It's just like this mental block. But you know what? They ended up showing up to the 2010 National Championship, and they lit people's assholes on fire. It was very, very amazing to see. But, you know, when that happened, everyone was kind of like, Halo 3, it's a fluke. They just came in one event, you know, they kind of got lucky. Who are these guys? Blah, 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 blah. And then everyone, this is like the general community, right? And like no one really gave them that much credit, myself included, because I did believe it was a fluke. But then Halo Reach came out. Halo Reach came out, and Status Quo was a very dominant team. A very, very dominant team. I believe they won 2 events. They won 1 in 2011. They also got a couple second places in there. And then they won the last Halo Reach event, which was No Bloom, No Sprint, which everyone considered to be the actual main event ever of Halo Reach. So they won the 2012 Columbus event with an amazing, I think it was a 10-game series. It may have been an 11-game series. No, actually it was. It was an 11-game series over Team Instinct, which aka the God Squad. So they definitely came out and they were showing that they were here to actually compete. So now that everyone is caught up with status quo and everyone knows where they're coming from as my little story time comes to an end here, let's talk about what APG is going to bring to this team. As of now, you guys all know that Enable's going to get the power weapons. He just makes plays. That's it. He is notorious for destroying with the sniper rifle. He is notorious for being the main slayer on the status quo team. Flamesword is known as the leader, right? And most people think, oh, well, he's the leader, so he's probably not the best on the team. But Flamesword's individual still definitely does still carry over. He is still a very, very talented player. And it's one of those things where you can't ever count him out. But if he will have bad games, right? Like, he's one of those players who will have a bad game because as a leader, he's going to be trying to get all the dirty work done. He's going to be going for that oddball. He's going to be going for that hill time. He's going to be going for the extractions when Enable and Snakebite are just like, baiting them, essentially, right? So that's going to happen. He's going to have his bad games, but what he brings is intensity, and what he brings is keeping his entire team focused. So that's important to have on a team. So Enable's going to be the main slayer. Flamesword, is going to be the leader. APG... it's going to be very interesting because APG, in my opinion, doesn't really have the similar playstyle as Royal 2. Royal 2 was kind of a slayer, right? Like, Royal 2 was just this young phenom who could just slay and play Halo all day and just be a monster, right? And everyone knew that about him. Everyone was like, dude, this fucking guy is a savage for no reason. He was like 15 or 16, just literally destroying the competition, and it was very, very impressive to see. But regardless, APG is known as the aggressor, right? Everyone knows APG is a guy who notoriously holds forward. He doesn't let go of forward, and he's always in your base. He's always in your face. That rhymed unintentionally, but it's whatever. That's what APG does. Now, is this going to work out for this team? I think for the first real time, I think we might actually be able to see if APG can be contained by someone. And what I mean by contained, I really mean tamed. I want to know if APG is actually able to buy into a system that status quo is going to be thrown at, because Flamesword is a very methodical guy, right? He likes having everything in order. Okay? He's one of those people who, when he works out, it's a religion. His meals are a religion. Everything is in a set motion here. So the question really is going to be is if APG can buy in to the status quo team, this system as a whole. And if he does, then it's going to work out amazingly. Now they've already done a couple of scrims and they look great. There hasn't really been any. They haven't really missed a beat. For going over and playing Call of Duty, they are still keeping up with teams like Warriors. They're still keeping up with teams like Pulse Ambush. They're here to win, and that's something that Flamesword's always going to bring to the table, and all of the status quo is going to bring to the table. Now, of course, they are sponsored, or Flamesword and Enable are still represented by Red Bull, so obviously they're freak athletes, right? Athletes, you know what I mean? But so you can expect this team to come out. How are they going to do at Nashville? I don't know. Nashville is one of those things where no one's gonna know what's the deal with Nashville until it just happens. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really gonna come down to brackets. It really is. Who's gonna have the easier semifinals? Who's gonna have who's going to have that tough semifinal matchup, right? Who's going to maybe run into Faded round 2? Who's going to run into Team Faded and possibly get the business, right? Faded comes out of nowhere and knocks out, SQ, and then SQ can't bounce back. That can happen. Same thing can happen with Ambush. Same thing can happen with Warriors. These things, the tournaments are completely crazy. Just no one can ever know. Now that's status quo in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and switch the team over here to Fnatic Classic. Fnatic Classic traditionally was God. I always get I know the team. It was Chig. Well, the Classic used to be the name Classic originated from 2008 in Halo 3. This was Soldier 187, Legend Pimps, who was a complete clown. Hated that guy in every way, shape, and form. God, he sucked. I teamed with him. He was the worst player. He literally cost us the game. We would have 3-1 Classic, the original Classic, right? Fear, and then Ant, right? So that was the original Classic. But so then later down the road, it really started changing hands. It went to like Ghost Ayami was on Team Classic. Like, anyways, this is a different. This is a much different Team Classic squad. What Team Classic was throughout Halo Reach was it was Prototype, Straight Sick, Russo, and Chig. Now, Prototype and Straight Sick, I do not keep up with them, nor do I ever intend to keep up with them. That's just how that is, right? If they show up to an event, like, I know their past, but I'm not going to go out of my way to know, like, what they're doing. But what I do know is what Chig and Russo are doing. So Chig and Russo decided to team for Nashville, right? So it's Chig and Russo. Now, Chig used to have no-scoping coined after Chig, and headshotting for that matter. Chig in Halo 3 was a force to be reckoned with the sniper, right? They used to call it chigging. They said, God, I am chigging with the sniper right now, because that's how sick he was online with it. And he also had moments in tournaments where he was the exact same monster, right? Like, he was sick. So everyone kind of knew what he was capable of. So Chig started slowly developing into this, like, world-class player, right? My big concern from Chig, from being a caster and being an ex-player, because I played against Chig and I also casted multiple games of his, was that, he wasn't the best communicator. He was kind of quiet, kind of kept to himself a little bit. In game, right? Like, he had a lot of people. It happens to a lot of people, right? And what happens is they get into this zone, right? They get into a zone where they focus on the game so hard that they forget to call out. They forget, to listen to call outs. They forget, like, the big plays. They forget, like, where they should be positioning themselves. It's just called tunnel vision, right? This is a code name, and that is exactly, what happened. Okay, so. And by the way, they could be called just Fnatic now, but I'm always going to refer to them as Fnatic Classic because I am an old school monster like that. So moving forward. But so that was my big deal with Chig. Now, Fnatic Classic or Fnatic or Classic, whatever the fuck they are, in 2011, they kind of came out of nowhere at Anaheim, right? They formed this team together. And then next thing you know, they show up to Anaheim and they get either third or I want to say they get third place at Anaheim, and no one even saw that coming. It was like, where did these monsters come from? Like, they are playing so well. I distinctively remember Russo getting just going off against Instinct with that grenade launcher, right? Or whatever the hell it was called back then. I call it the noob tube, whatever it was called back then, right? Like, Straight Sick and Prototype were traditional, like, FFA kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, they were like, no one thought they could make the transition over to 4v4, but they ended up doing well. But so, now to speed things up a little bit here, Chig and Russo have decided to stay as a duo. And the first person they reach out with and grab is Mikwin. Now, a lot of people know Mikwin, right? Yeah, you always see him on Twitter posting something stupid. He's actually, and by stupid I mean he's a pretty funny dude. He's actually a buddy of mine. He's like my exact polar opposite. I'm like, they like coined me like a country guy and all this bullshit, and he's like a punk rocker who wears skinny jeans and he's like 110 pounds, right? But he's like, he is like my opposite, but I love, like, he's a badass dude, right? Like, he's a really fun guy to hang out with in every way, shape, and form. Mainly just because he's such a shit show. Like, when you guys get to know, if you guys go to Nashville and he gets, like, if he, like, wins for, whatever reason, you're going to see him. And he's, like, he is a complete shit show. It's hilarious in every way, shape, and form. But so then, they picked up Mikwin. And Mikwin Miquin is a player who lived underneath the shadow of Ninja for a long time, right? In Halo Reach, he was like, no one really knew what his deal was unless you played against him, and then you were like, okay, he's good. He definitely has the talent to propel people to this level. He ended up being on Turning Point where he got I think he only has 2 top 8 placings at an MLG event, right? I think he only has 2. So Ninja in the sense of, well, not excluding MLG Dallas. I have no idea what happened at Dallas, nor do I count that as an actual event. By Dallas, I'm talking about the Halo 4 Dallas. That is the biggest asterisk ever in MLG history. So we don't talk about that. Don't ever try to say, like, oh, well, Rynoob won an event. No, he didn't. Like, Ninja did not win an MLG event. Period. That is an asterisk. So fucking relax. It's disgusting to say that that's even an event. We didn't even have chairs on the main stage. Repulsive. But so Miquin's big thing is that he's a very, very streaky player. He's a very streaky player. There's times where you wonder how he's going to do. But the thing about it is that Miquin has this ungodly potential involved in him, right? Like, he can go off with the sniper. He puts himself in good position, but I think he's a head case, right? I think he ends up working himself up over things, and he doesn't know how good he really is. I think he's still caught in this, like, little brother shadow towards Ninja, right? Like, he's not sure where he's at as a player, and because of that, he doubts himself. But anyways, but I think that's going to change because of one person, and it's a person he got top 8 with, and that's Bestman. Bestman's going to be rounding out as the 4th here for Team Fnatic Classic. Now, Bestman is habitually a non-practicer as of 2000 Reach. Halo 3 probably a little bit too. Bestman is known as not getting on to practice, but but on the flip side, he's also known as whatever team he gets thrown on, practice or not, still gets top 6. That's just how Bestman is. He is a person who shows up to an event and he competes. It's something that's quite remarkable, but at the same time, you also have to wonder, how that actually benefits, or if he's not using his full potential. Now, the thing about Bestman, though, is Bestman started. So here's a little background about Bestman here, so you guys can really start getting to know these players, because I'm going to try to do this for as many teams as I can. The thing about Bestman is that he originally started as an FFA kid, right? He started in Halo 2 as a person who didn't understand 4v4, just like Pistola, and all he could do was play free for all. Now I think he got a couple top 8s, maybe in Halo 2 FFA, but he definitely got multiple top 16 placings, right? So he was definitely very, very good. And in Halo 2, you had to be good to be placing that high. FFA was like its own entity. It wasn't like, oh, well, if you were good at 4v4, you were good at FFA. No, that is just not, that's not how it works in Halo 2, because I was a good player, Shockwave was a good player, there's a lot of others who were in the same kind of boat who weren't in the top 8. Karma was a good player, right? Karma was an amazing Halo 2, 4v4, and FFA player, right? But then 2007 came around when players like Bestman and Pistola came out, and Karma never made it back to the 1v1s, right? So everyone knows Karma is this like 1v1 FFA god, but everyone forgets that 2007, he didn't even make top 8. So, that's to put it in perspective for a lot of you guys. But so Bestman had started off as a free-for-all kid, and that's exactly where he got his start, and that's kind of what shaped him. Then, so since then, he's probably been playing since like 2006, I guess, competitively. No, 2005 was his first event, I believe. Philly 05, Bestman's first event. But so from Philly 05 all the way to present, Bestman does not have a single Major League Gaming event win, period. for the caliber of player that he was in his heyday, in his prime, there was almost like no reasoning as to why he did not achieve a first place finish, and it's something that still haunts him to this day. I gotta think, because he's never been able to say that he's won an event. He's never been able to leave an event and say, I am the best player. Like, I am on the best team, right? Like, that's got to eat at you. Like, that's the same with Macchio. That's the same with Naded. Everyone regards Naded at this high level, but Naded's never even won an event. So if you've never won an event, like, who gives a shit, right? Like, it's all subjective. And now here my allergies are coming in. It's so ridiculous. I hate these things. Ninja is not in the same boat as Best Man. Best Man, his rep sheet is about 3 times better than Ninja's, because even though, you know, everyone, there's like AGL events now and stuff like that, it is still everything is held at the highest regard at an MLG. So you take MLG and you go from there, right? And then everything else is still below. Until AGL rises up and we start getting all these big household names back in, I see, like, just snot. It's disgusting. Until we start seeing these people start rise back up, it's not going to happen. Defy has won 2 events, and he won both of those events with me. He won Nashville 05 and Seattle 05. But so let's talk about Classic as a whole. How is this team going to work out? Well, I'm not sure. I would sit here and probably say, I would sit here and try to lie to you guys and say, like, oh yeah, I know everything about this team. I know how they're going to gel, but I haven't watched them play once. That's that. But I can tell you what, just based on the raw talent of this team, it's not like they're going to get anything below top 4. I can promise you that. I think it's more likely to see an upset of, like, I think you'd be more expected to see an upset of the other 3 teams, the other big names, Pulse, SQ, Warriors falling outside of the top 4 than you will see Fnatic Classic. And the reason I say that is just because they're so raw. They're going to show up and they're going to compete. And I know people are like, oh, there's no way those 3 teams could fall out. Yeah. Just wait till you see how brackets work out, right? Like, until people see brackets, there's nothing that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could be one-sided as a son of a bitch. And that's it. There's been multiple times where people got just an easy walk-in right to the winners bracket semifinals, and you know that's how it worked. Like, look at the Carbon squad at Columbus 2012. They had an easy walkthrough to like the top 6, and then or I think it was top 6. It may have been top 12. Yeah, either way, they didn't lose like a single game, and then they finally matched players who were good, and then they got just destroyed. So, that's how it's gonna work. But so what you guys should take from this is, 1, always be on the lookout for Status Quo. Status Quo is a team who is always going to show up, and they're going to be led by someone who actually knows what he is doing. Flamesword's going to be that guy who's going to be able to pull everyone together, and that's that. I'll tell you this right now, if they practice a decent amount and APG gets tamed by Flamesword and buys into the Status Quo system, there's no reason why I could not see Status Quo winning. That's Status Quo. Next, Classic. Classic is a team that has just untapped potential, right? If they show up, awesome. Like, they're probably going to be in the top 2. If they do what Best Man normally does, which is not give a shit about the event, not give 2 shits about the event, and then show up, they're going to get 4th still. Classic's going to remain in the top 4. Practice or no practice, they're going to stay in the top 4. That's that. So I would say a lot of the weight is resting on Mikwin's shoulders, and I'm going to put it on Mikwin's shoulders because it's time that he handles something for once in his life. Mikwin's never actually had pressure on him because he's always had, his buddy Ninja to kind of bail him out because all the attention was on Ninja because Ninja's so, he's such a celebrity in this scene. But I'm going to put a lot of the weight on Ninja. Chig and Russo have proven themselves. Same with Bestman. The person now who is a question mark is not those three. It is Mikwin. So Mikwin, straight to you, Austin, buddy. My opposite. How your team does is going to rely on you, right? And that's everything. Not just, at the event I was raping. I'm talking practicing, getting on, showing up to the event, getting adequate sleep, not going out and getting fucking blackout drunk on Saturday and coming in Sunday morning, right? Those are your things. That it is on you. Other than that, that's going to do it for Gandhi's Thoughts episode 19. As always, this is going to go straight up on YouTube. If you want more of these, just let me know. But the big thing here, I'm going to try to capture all the big teams going in. So the next one, I'll probably do Pulse Ambush, and I got to learn a little bit about Faded. But I will be doing Faded as well. So the next one will be Ambush and Faded. So until then, stay tuned. Also, I will be streaming at 8 o'clock tonight. Be there. Peace.